How's it going, you beautiful people? This is Griffdog here, and welcome to another episode of Grifftalks, a show where we as NASCAR fans openly discuss NASCAR. So to get things started, I do have a couple announcements I want to throw out there. First of all, for the episode of Grifftalks moving forward, it's going to be in a new style. I'm going to do it as more of a podcast now moving forward. So if you guys are low on battery, you need to dim the screen brightness or whatever, you can do so, and I'm going to talk more. And the biggest reason for this is so that I'm able to cut down on editing, and so the focus is more on the discussion, and that this show is not as visually reliant. And the big thing is I don't want any copyright infringements coming my way. So hope you guys enjoy it. If you guys have any questions or concerns, please say so in the comment section down below. Now also, I had some time away because, as you know, last week I wasn't really doing much on social media, and that's just because I actually had my computer off for the entire week. And it was really nice because I was able to get away, I was able to see the flowers that were outside of my backyard, I was able to look back at my older videos, and it was very interesting because I was able to look at the stuff that worked and did not work. And long story short, you are going to see some better stuff from me. And as always, in the comment section down below, if there's any suggestions or recommendations to making my videos better, please recommend it in the comment section down below, and I will greatly consider it. And it makes me feel refreshed, like I'm set to go and I'm ready to make some new stuff. And speaking of new stuff, later this week, probably Sunday, I want to say, Sunday or Monday next week, the 9th 10 Winners Challenge will come out. And so for this 10 Winners Challenge, it is going to be the 2012 Spring Martinsville race. The one where Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, and Clint Bowyer had their little shindig going into turn 1 on the first attempt of a green-white checkered finish. What I'm going to do is I'm going to redo that attempt 10 times, of course, of 10 different winners. Now, I'm going to have some fun with this one. What's going to happen is, regardless of what happens on the track, the finish will be under green. We will not have a caution ruin the finish of the attempt. So you'll see crashes, but the one thing you will not see is the caution flag. So I hope you guys enjoy that, and as I said, it'll probably be out Sunday or Monday or so. Now, a new section I'm going to work with on the episode of Grifftalks is I'm going to do a little race rundown and talk about the previous week's races. And I'm not going to talk too much about it because we're more focused on the week ahead, but I still want to talk about it anyway. And since I didn't talk about Daytona and Speed Weeks, I'll talk about that in this episode too. So as you know, Kurt Busch won for the first time ever at Daytona with Stewart-Haas Racing, and yeah, there was a bunch of firsts. Kurt Busch's first Daytona 500 as a driver. Tony Gibson, that's his name, first time winner as a crew chief. Tony Stewart, first time winner in anything, but this is for more specifically as an owner. And it was cool. Now, a lot of people have the conspiracy saying that Monster wants to have their name across, and so it makes sense that Monster car goes to victory lane. I disagree with that. Kurt Busch had enough fuel, he was able to be there at the right place at the right time, and he was able to win the Daytona 500. So I definitely deny any of those conspiracy theories. Now, there were a lot of wrecks, and I don't blame the stages for that, for the amount of wrecks going, because throughout the whole entire race, it was competitive. And the drivers did have the choice to tone it down, but they didn't. And so because of that, there were a lot of wrecks, and I think only 5 cars ended up finishing the race without being in any incident. And then finally, my boy for that race was Kyle Larson, and what did he do? He led the last lap, ran out of fuel, and he finished like 8th, if I remember correctly. So, horrible luck, but at least he got a top 10, right? Then for the Xfinity and Truck Series, it was more the same as the Cup Series. Lots of wrecks. Lots and lots of wrecks. As you know, Kaz Grala is the youngest driver to win a race in the National Series at Daytona at 18 years old. And then Ryan Reed got a second career race win at Daytona. So congrats to both of them. But as I said, lots of more wrecks, and as you are aware, Matt Crafton in the 88 bright yellow Menards Toyota flew in the air on the back straightaway. on the final lap, thus bringing out the caution. And yeah, we all know that trucks can fly now. Now, the two people I had for those races, the truck series, was Christopher Bell. And as you guys know, Christopher Bell, he wrecked 3 times during the entire race, yet he finished 8th. So good job to him. And then the guy I had for the Xfinity Series was Brad Keselowski. He was there at the end, but he got kicked out of the line and he fell back to like 10th or so at the very end. Now let's move on to Atlanta, because that's the most recent race. So in the Cup Series, Brad Keselowski won, and I'm very happy that he won because I have the diecast of him. And I'm pretty sure a lot of other people do, because this is the only Brad Keselowski 2017 diecast that's available in the NASCAR Authentics line. So, I mean, I might not be the only one, but it makes me feel special. And so you can't take that away from me. So what else? Oh yeah, and then Kyle Larson. What are you doing, Kyle? So he ran the low side throughout the entire race. And then once he got into the lead, and I'll explain how he got there, he goes to the high side, and it's like, why? You were doing so good on the low side, but then you decided to go high, and there's no grip. And Brad Keselowski goes to the low side and beats you out, and it's just, again, why? Why do you go to the high side? So because of that, Kyle Larson loses yet another race, and we're going to see how long it'll take before Kyle Larson gets his first win of the season and second win of his career. So how Larson even got into the lead is interesting, because the dominant car of the race was Kevin Harvick. He was there, won stages 1 and 2, led the most laps, but on the final pit stop of the race, which by the way, the caution was for Austin Dillon, who had a battery go down because for whatever reason he didn't want to go down pit road, or the crew didn't want him to go down pit road. Anyway, Harvick ended up having a speeding penalty. He went to the back of the field and wound up finishing, I believe, in the top 10, 9th or 8th. And so, yeah, speeding penalty absolutely killed him, and he didn't have the chance to win. Now, the person I had for this race was Kyle Busch, because I thought his Cup car would do well. I was wrong again, and Kyle Busch was like around 20th, if I remember correctly. He had a terrible car all race long, and I had the best of luck of picking drivers that ended up not doing so well. So, good for me. Now, on the trucks and Xfinity side, Christopher Bell won the truck race. He dominated, winning all the stages, including the final stage. And then on the Xfinity side, surprise, surprise, Kyle Xfinity Slayer Busch won again. So good job to both of them. The driver I had for the truck race was Chase Briscoe. I've kind of grown an interest in Chase Briscoe and having him be my favorite driver. He did good at the beginning of the truck race, but then a tire went down and that cost him a good finish. And then on the Xfinity side, I had Denny Hamlin, who drove the Heisens 20 car. He also had a tire go down, and that ruined his day. So, long story short, I have the worst of luck picking drivers. But I'm going to still do it anyway because it gives me something to watch during the race. Now, a couple of quick takeaways from the first 2 races. The first thing I'm so happy about is the low downforce in the Xfinity Series. What it really does is that it puts racing a lot more into the driver's hands. And you even saw in the first couple of laps, Ty Dillon, he got loose going into turn 1, and he ended up spinning and collecting Blake Cook. And so I definitely think the Xfinity Series is going to be a lot more enjoyable now moving forward. And I can't wait to see them race at Vegas. And then the other 2 things my mind has changed about is both the stages and the damage clock policy. For the stages, at first I was really skeptical about it, but especially at Atlanta, I think they're necessary. Because it's one of those things where it's like you have no idea when the next caution comes out, and there's a lot of uncertainty involved. But now with these stages, it's like you know that there will be a break coming up ahead, and there's no guessing game anymore. There's that certainty that's in there, which is great. And then the other thing is the damage clock. Now, a lot of people don't like it, and a lot of people think there should be more time on there. But the way I see it, either you are able to fix your car or you don't. Because the one thing that is terrible, and I'm glad they got rid of, is having an absolutely destroyed car and then you just cripple it around the track at a very, very slow pace. Honestly, and I like that. Either you should be competitive or you should not. And what was so cool, especially at Daytona, was you had so many battered cars at the finish, it seemed like an old dirt race. And so I'm really happy to see that, and it'll be interesting to see down the road how this damage clock thing is going to keep going. So I'm definitely happy about that. Now the next part I'm going to talk about is the comments, and I'm going to reply to some comments from the previous episode of Grifftalks. Now the first big thing I do want to respond to is that at first I said I was not going to talk about NASCAR news. Oh, I love the uproar. I was going to make a meme and respond to every single person that said, please bring back news. But no, I want to actually, be a little more serious about it. And long story short, I am going to bring back the news. I'll talk about 4 or 5 different major news stories from each week. And I'll throw in my opinion, and then I'll throw it to you guys, what you guys think of each news story. So you guys have your wish. We will bring it back. And I don't mind it. Like, you guys are worried that I'm forced to talk about news. I don't mind it. Because what it makes me do is it makes me more dived into the business that is NASCAR. And it helps me be more aware of it, so then I can relay it out to you guys, and you guys get a fan's perspective of the news that is going on in the NASCAR world. Now we got that out of the way. Now I will respond to 5 other comments that were from the previous episode of Griff Talks. Alright, so the first comment comes from Gman024, and he commented, Diecast are like Pokemon. You gotta catch them all. Yeah, no kidding about that. I used to play Pokemon, actually. When I was a little kid, I would have the Game Boy Color and Pokemon Red and Pokemon Gold. Very good stuff. And in terms of Pokemon cards, I do have the first and second generation Pokemon cards. Yeah, I got the holographic Charizard, holographic Blastoise, back from like 1999 and 2000. But anyway, we're not talking about Pokemon, we're talking about NASCAR here. Thanks, Gman024. Alright, so now the next comment comes from Michael Harvey, and he asks, what is your favorite NASCAR rage moment? My favorite rage moment has got to be from Richmond, and I believe it's 2012, when Martin Truex had a terrible pit stop, and he was like, fired, you're all fired, every one of you is fired. It's so funny just because of how absolutely abrupt it was. And the funny thing was, they actually all were fired. And next week, Martin Truex ended up having a whole new pit crew. So it's out there somewhere, probably on a NASCAR Rage compilation, but it's so funny. And it's, I think, the only time I've ever heard Martin Truex Jr. rage before, considering how calm he is. So good for you, Martin Truex. Good for you to let your inner rage out. Alright, so the next comment comes from A88G24, and he complimented saying, this guy looks like Chase Briscoe. He's a pretty darn looking guy, if I say so myself. He's a charmer, that's for sure. And you know what? You, sir, made my day. So thank you so much for that. But on a serious note, I've mentioned it before and I'll mention it again. Chase Briscoe has really kind of grown. Like, I've really become, acquainted with Chase Briscoe. And I definitely hope he does well in the Truck Series moving up. Because he only had one full-time season in the ARCA Series, and he ended up dominating the championship. I really hope he does well in Truck Series, and he's slowly becoming one of my favorite drivers. Alright, so then the next comment comes from NASCAR24 Tron fan. And so he commented, what do you think about cars or trucks getting airborne, and how should we be able to fix it? So he's referring to when Matt Crafton blew over on the back straightaway on the last lap at Daytona. And my response to that is, they shouldn't. And the simple reason why is, if you're concerned about driver safety, they were fine. When Matt Crafton flew in the air and whatnot, he got out of his truck, he interviewed with the Fox people, and he was laughing and being sarcastic and whatnot, and he was fine. Now, what they should fix is those head-on into the outside wall and inside wall hit or crashes. The biggest example was in the Xfinity Series. Brandon Jones had an extremely dangerous head-on and into the outside wall collision, and he was really bruised from that. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's those wrecks that need to be prevented. And the one thing I do blame is the shark fin on the car. Because if I remember correctly, the point of the shark fin is to straighten out the cars. But the problem with that is when a car gets turned, because once a car gets turned, the entire body is sideways. I was going to lean for breath because I was this car, but I'll just use my hand. And so what happens is when it goes sideways, like the car is like battling to try to go straight, but since the entire car is sideways, it wants to go straight like to the wall, which is why you have Danica's 2012 wreck at Daytona, Miguel Paludo's 2012 wreck at Daytona, Kyle Busch's 2015 wreck at Daytona Xfinity Series, Danica's 2016 wreck, and so on. Because the point is the cars are going straight. They want to go straight, and especially because of the shark fin, they really want to straighten out. But since the entire body is trying to spin, it's this conflict of interest, and that slams them into the inside wall, thus hurting them really bad. So I suggest we get rid of those shark fins and just let the vehicle spin out. And I know you guys are so worried about blowovers. One, they're visually pretty, and two, the drivers for the most part are fine. Now I know what you're thinking, Austin Dillon's wreck, that was terrifying. Now true, but I just blame the body design for that. But in terms of cars actually just spinning out, sure, cars will flip or whatnot, but there's so much safety inside the vehicles that I would think they would be fine. And so I definitely think it's one of those things we want the cars to be loose. We want them to be out of control. It's the driver who's able to manhandle or woman handle the car the best should be declared the winner. And I get it, like engines and chassis and whatnot should be involved as well, but more racing should go into the driver's hands versus the cars that they are in. So that's just my little rant on that. So then the final comment I'm going to reply to is Mario's Minions, and he asked, do you think NASCAR will ever be able to get back to the glory days? So everyone's version of the glory days is different, because some people think 10 years ago is the glory days, some people would think 20 years ago is the glory days, and some people would think 30 years, like when Dale Waltrip and Dale Earnhardt were battling it out. Those were the glory days. So it depends on what your perspective of what the glory days is, but my take on the glory days is that one thing for sure is that you won't see any racing, or it won't be like 15 years ago. That's the point I'm getting at. And the biggest reason why is technology. Technology has ramped up so much in 15 years that racing has to adapt to it. And not just the technology like that people use during a race, but people in general, like social media. All that is there now. And because of that, NASCAR needs to adapt somehow, some way. And so in terms of the actual racing, I honestly think that racing will not be better until we have an owner that is dedicated and committed to their sport. Because if I remember correctly, Brian France only goes to about a third of the races in the Monster Cup Series. And that's ridiculous. I mean, why do you not attend your own sport? I mean, do you not care about it that much, or what's up? Because I definitely want to see someone who's more invested in the sport, someone who has a passion behind it, and not just a hand-me-down kind of ordeal. Yeah, and then also someone who, as I mentioned before, where the racing goes back into the driver's hands and not so committed, because, especially the Gen 5 cars, just how big they are. It's so much more on the car part now than the drivers. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Engines and chassis and bodies, that is a big factor, but I think it should go back more into the driver's hands. And then the last thing, and I don't know how we could fix this problem, but I just want to bring it up, is sponsor reliability. Because I just think it's ridiculous how much sponsors pay nowadays to be in NASCAR, because it's way more than the actual winnings you earn during a race. And I think somehow that needs to be more leveled out. Now, I have no idea how to fix that problem, but so long as the problem is brought up first, then maybe we can talk about it and figure out how we can fix the problem. And so if you guys have any suggestions on how we can fix this problem, please bring it down into the comment section down below. I am interested in what you guys have to say. And not just that, but any of the comments before. If you guys have any suggestions, opinions on anything, please, comment section down below is available. And the biggest thing is let's have a discussion about it. How can we make NASCAR the quality, great sport that, quote-unquote, Mario's Minions said, the glory days once had? So now the part you guys are all interested in hearing is the news. So as I said, I will talk about 4 or 5 different news stories coming out from the week. And so I'll look at as many perspectives on it as possible, and then I'll give you guys my perspective and my opinion on each of the different news stories. So now the first thing I want to talk about is quieter cars. So NASCAR has brought up a proposition to, throughout a couple of years, quieting the cars. So the reason for this is to have a better social environment so that people can talk to each other and socialize better without the distraction of the stock cars. Now, it does sound good at all, but the biggest thing is that it's a pastime, and it's one of those things that really makes NASCAR stand out. And then the other problem that, I don't know if it'll happen nowadays, but Rick Mast on Twitter, he mentioned how there was one race where he did have a muffler. It did quiet the cars, but also made the cockpit of his car 200 degrees. So is it worth it to have the drivers be at risk of having like heat stroke or something like that? So there are definitely some different aspects, but the way I see it, I'm okay with it so long as the actual racing on the track does not alternate, if it doesn't become much worse. And so I'm okay with it, even though it is like a classic pastime, like I understand that. But the bigger thing is I'm a visual guy, and so I would prefer if the racing still is close and bumper to bumper, all that fun stuff. And honestly, I don't even know if it's going to make that much of a difference on the track. Like if it's going to be like the cars on the highway where it's going to be like, yeah, that's my rendition of muffled cars. There, take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, honestly, I'm just more of a visual guy than audio. So it's like, it'd be great if they don't, but it's not like I'm going to boycott NASCAR if they decide to quiet the cars at all. All right, so then the next bit of news, it's actually broken down into a few chunks. It's the track news, because quite a few tracks have quite a few different things going on. First of all, so we have news about the road course for Charlotte. It is confirmed on Tuesday, multiple sources told NBC Sports that the road course at Charlotte will not be used in 2017, but there's a good chance it will be used in 2018 during the playoff race. And so it'll be very cool to see a third road course come into play, and my take on it is that it's great. I definitely think having more diversity of racetracks is fantastic. And what's interesting too is that you're taking the Charlotte Motor Speedway and you're using like the infield of the track, which I remember correctly is the case. Now, I prefer we don't see that at like Daytona, because Daytona is supposed to be like fast super speedway. But like at 1.5 mile intermediate tracks, seeing like the road course there is totally fine with me. But I also highly suggest we go to more diverse tracks. I'll talk more about that here in a little bit. Or, okay, maybe not a little bit, more like right now. Because the next thing that we want to talk about is that it is confirmed that Las Vegas Motor Speedway will have 2 triple header weekends in 2018. The first triple header weekend will be Las Vegas. So as a side note, what that means is that the first 3 weekends now will be triple headers. Whereas not even like 4 or 5 years ago, only the first race was a triple header weekend, and then the trucks, they don't race again until like April. So now the first 3 weekends are triple header weekends, giving trucks more of an opportunity to shine earlier on. But we're going to have 2 of them. Because what's going to happen now is the truck standalone race, the Xfinity race at Kentucky, and the Cup race at New Hampshire, the second one, are gone. And they're now all being replaced with Las Vegas now. And so the reason for this is that Las Vegas is trying to stand out and become more of a sportsplex. Because along with having a Las Vegas hockey team, and then you also have an Oakland Raiders trying to go to Las Vegas now, they're trying to become more of like a sports place. and not just a place for casinos and lotteries and all that good stuff. So now the one thing that I am not a fan of is that 2 standalone races are gone, and that is the truck standalone race at Las Vegas, as well as the Xfinity standalone race at Kentucky. Now, the thing that NASCAR brought up, and I can understand and I agree with, is that apparently doing the standalone race at Kentucky, you do lose profits from that, which actually kind of sucks. Now, bringing this up, and the way I see it is that Xfinity and Truck Series should still have more standalone races, but they should be at shorter tracks. That way, NASCAR doesn't need to put as much money into making them work. And so, like, if you have Xfinity go to like South Boston, Myrtle Beach, or Memphis, among other tracks, it'd be great because they'll be able to stand alone and have their own competition. But since it's a smaller track and a smaller facility, you don't need to put in as much money to set everything up. So from my eyes, I'm okay with having a Cup Series race have a second race at Las Vegas, but I seriously suggest we do go to different venues. And to all the people that are complaining, saying that now we're going to have 6 1.5 mile tracks in the playoff, remember, Charlotte will use the road course. So technically it is going to go down to 5 again. But I don't think that's it. I think there's still going to be some more rumors going around in terms of the scheduling. Now, true, it is in their 2nd or 3rd year of the 5-year agreement, but since Monster is now in play, I think you're going to see some more changes down the road. So what do you guys think? In the comments down below, what tracks would you like to see be added on, and which tracks that do have 2 races, which ones do you want to see off? Let me know down in the comment section down below. Now, another quick little thing that I want to really hit on is the Circuit of the Americas is interested in having a NASCAR race. The chairman, his name is Bobby Epstein, has established himself and he has said that he and the officials are interested in pursuing a NASCAR National Series race. I think that's great. I think we should have some more diversity, go to different tracks, you know? But good old Eddie Gossage. He comes in wagging his millions of dollars in front of Bobby Epstein, and he's like, "You are 20 years too late." That is so low of you, Eddie Gossage. Really. Are you honestly so content with yourself that you're willing to take down a track that would probably end up getting more revenue anyway than your speedway? And honestly, if we do go to Circuit of Americas, I think fans are definitely being more supportive of it, and thus more revenue will come out of it. So why not? Let them race at Circuit of the Americas. And then the last track news I do want to talk about here is 3 tracks are going to have same day qualifying and racing. Those being the Fall Pocono race, Watkins Glen, and the Fall Martinsville race. What will happen is earlier in the morning, everyone will have their qualifying sessions, and then they'll have their racing then later on in the afternoon. Now, my point of view on this is I think it's good. I think we're at a point in time now where we don't need to stretch out a weekend, and the focus should be more on Saturday and Sunday. And so I definitely think it's good, and it does save NASCAR some money. And also, too, if you want to look at it in the dirt races or whatever, they do everything in one night. So the only exceptions would probably be like the bigger events, like Daytona 500 or Indy or Charlotte. Those should be maybe 3 days. But those other races where there really isn't much support, I mean, those are still big races, but not as big. They should be 2 days instead of 3. So now the next bit of news, so I'm done with the track stuff, by the way. Okay, now I lied. There's one thing I want to quickly talk about, that's the Atlanta repave. A lot of people have been saying that they should not repave the track. What I would quickly say is that I think we should, and my concern is we don't want another Martinsville episode or another Daytona 500 episode where chunks of the pavement start coming out of the track and then we end up having 1-2 hour red flags. That's my concern. Now, I get it, the character and all that stuff, but in order to actually keep the track in good shape, I think the repavement is necessary. And from what I heard, all they're going to do is they're going to put new pavement on top of the old pavement. Because there are some times where it's like you rip off the old pavement, but the new pavement then will then be taken on top of the dirt. But what's going to happen now is that the new pavement is just going to be slapped on top of the old pavement, thus keeping the characteristics that Atlanta has, but we still have the new pavement at the same time. So what do you guys think? You like the idea of new pavement on Atlanta or not? Again, let me know in the comment section down below. Then the next bit of news I want to talk about is Jordan Anderson. If you guys have not been aware, Jordan Anderson's season is up in jeopardy. Because as you know, his truck went in the air at Atlanta last week, and because of that, his truck was absolutely destroyed. But now what he's doing is he's looking to us for help. And so he does have a website, and it's called sponsorjordan.com. I'll put that in the description down below. And so what he needs is our help to get a truck going for Martinsville so that he continues on with the season. And so he has packages ranging from $20 to $5,000. And honestly, I think we should help him out just because he is kind of what I call a true racer. He builds his own vehicles and he races them. He's not one of those bigger teams that has all the sponsor support and all the support of hundreds of people. And so it's one of those teams where it's like not many people look at because he's not a front runner, but he is, in my opinion, a true racer, and I seriously recommend we help him out. And and that's the last thing. He's not, what do you call, like a cash grab racer? I don't know if that's the proper term, but like one that's in it for the money. Like he, along with Tommy Joe Martins, are more into it because of the actual racing. But they don't have the money and support that like Brad Keselowski Racing, Kyle Busch Motorsports, among others, have. So if you guys do have $20, and there is perks, like if you do throw in $20, Jordan Anderson will write your name on his truck for next week if he does get enough support. So I hope so. I definitely think he deserves it. All right, and then the last thing I want to talk about here is the 2018 NASCAR Hall of Fame nominees were announced on Wednesday night. So we have 20 nominees, but before I talk about that, we do have 5 nominees for the Landmark Hall of Fame, and the finalists include Jim France, Janet McGuthrie, Alvin Hawkins, Ralph, man, I am not the best at writing, Ralph C. Graves, I believe it is, and Ken Squire. So they're all nominated for the Landmark Award. And then in terms of the actual Hall of Fame, the 5 new nominees are Davey Allison, Roger Penske, Joe Gibbs, Bobby Labonte, Red Farmer are all first-time nominees. They join the 15 nominees that are also in, and those are Buddy Baker, Red Byron, Ray Everham, Ray Fox, Ron Hornaday, Harry Hyde, Herschel McGriff, Alan Quickie, Larry Phillips, Jack Roush, Ricky Rudd, Ken Squire, Woodall Wilson, Mike Stefanik, and Robert Yates. So those are all going to be nominated, and then later on we are going to figure out the actual 5 picks for the 2018 Hall of Fame. So my question to you guys is, who do you think is going to go into the Hall of Fame next year? Comment your 5 down below. Now, if you want to ask me what I think, I actually never really thought about it, but I would probably say Davey Allison and Roger Penske for sure. I definitely think they'll be on. I think Jack Roush would be in. I could definitely see Alan Kulwicki go in. And then my last one would probably be Ken Squire. Each of those 5 have really put a lot into the sport, and I hope they get into the Hall of Fame this year. But we'll find that out later on. I don't know what date it is when they'll announce it. If you guys know, comment down below. That'd be greatly fantastic. So now the final part of this video is the predictions for this week, as we are going to Las Vegas. Viva Las Vegas. 2 of the series are going to go there. Those are the Xfinity and the Cup series. Now, as you guys know, I have terrible luck with picking who the winner will be. So we'll see where it goes. On the Xfinity side, I got Kyle Busch, because this week is going to be another Cup-filled race for the Xfinity Series, because along with Kyle Busch, you got Daniel Suarez, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, Kyle Larson, Ty Dillon, Austin Dillon, among others. But I think Kyle Busch will get it done. And I'm doing it because it's a win-win for myself because, if my streak actually continues, then Kyle Busch would actually not win a race. But Kyle Busch will do his FU tour and Kyle Busch would win, which will make me a winner, which will make me happy. So, haha, I can beat the system too. All right, and then as for the Cup Series, low downforce there, we had a pretty exciting race last year at Vegas. We'll see. The low downforce package is going to be interesting, and we'll find out. But I got Kevin Harvick. I think Kevin Harvick will redeem himself from Atlanta. He will be there at the very end, and it'll be Ford's third consecutive win of the season. Something that has not happened in, I think, 20 years. So it'll be interesting to see if that happens. So overall, that's all I have for this episode of Grifftalks. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. What do you guys want me to talk about next week? I am open to pretty much anything NASCAR related. So thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, I will see you next time.